Welcome to Cinematalkraphy. We watch movies with you so you don't have to.
I am Groot.
And I am Brandt.
Welcome to Cinematography. I'm your host, Roberto Vegas, joined by always by Mr. Brandt Hughes. And we are here at the Alamo Drafthouse, and we just got out of probably my now favorite movie of the summer.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I come from Earth, a planet of outlaws. My name is Peter Quill. There's one other name you might know me by. Star-Lord.
Who?
Well, Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw.
That was amazing. That was everything I had hoped it could have been, and everything I could have dreamed it could have been.
Yeah, it was pretty excellent.
Here's the question. Can Marvel falter now? I mean, because they have literally made a movie where we have they made a damn movie with a living tree. All he utters is, I am Groot, and damn it if his performance wasn't magical.
I'm sure technically they could falter. But, I mean, they would have to,
They have
try.
to really try at this point. They'd have to really, basically say, we're going to fuck it up somehow. Let's fuck it up.
All right. M. Night Shyamalan
Okay.
brings you the next Marvel film.
All right. I'm in.
It's about as far as I got.
Okay. That's as far as it needs to go, because that's the only way I could see them screwing this up, because, going into Guardians of the Galaxy, I had a feeling of what I was going to get into just by the trailers alone, and I was really excited for that reason. But a lot of people were sort of like, a talking raccoon? What the hell? Who's this Star-Lord guy? Then they're not your out of all the Marvel properties, they're not the ones that people commonly talk about. They're not a Wolverine, they're not an X-Men, they're not even I don't know, Iron Man. All those sort of things.
Sure.
But damn it if it didn't work.
Damn
it if
great.
it wasn't funny. Damn
it
if
totally
it wasn't
worked,
amazing. Okay, so what why don't you give us a little bit of what it was of the movie?
You know what I really enjoyed about this?
Go for it.
First and foremost, of course, I would say one of the more obvious things that are really easy takeaways from this film is almost their Samurai Champloo-like nature in mixing in music that you don't usually see in this genre.
That's what I was going to say. That was probably the greatest part of the film was the soundtrack alone. I mean, it was really cool how they tied it in. Like, we kick off with Quibble, or I forget, Star-Lord essentially.
Yeah.
And his 1988, his mother is dead.
Yeah, man,
died.
really hit you in the gut right off the bat.
Yeah, pretty much was just like, oh shit, this is where we're starting? How the fuck are we going to get the laughs in this one? Like, this is like a touching moment. And the way they kick in the music, the idea, which was such a unique way of doing it, was that it has this sort of, like, he basically has a Walkman on him, a tape cassette Walkman.
Yeah.
Headphones on. He's listening to what is entitled, like, Best Mixtape Volume 1 or something like that. Some, like, Awesome Mixtape Volume 1.
Yeah, Awesome Mix Volume 1, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And it's, it starts off with these sort of, very much music that doesn't belong in the scene, because once you realize where you are, you're in a hospital and what's going to happen, it's like this, how the hell are you juxtaposition that? And then, after his mother dies, he ends up running out and gets essentially picked up by a UFO.
Gets abducted.
Gets abducted, essentially, and that kicks off the movie.
Yeah. And
it's amazing how they work in a lot of those things, because Star-Lord, for us as the audience, is our
protagonist,
but also our voice into this. Because one of my favorite things to do in science fiction, and one of my favorite kind of tropes that they tend to do, is having a character that is totally and utterly opposite from everybody else, sort of like your Han Solo character or your more kind of wisecracking character. And what I like about Star-Lord as a character is, one, I'm always a fan of anybody that makes references that I would have made in that situation. At one point he was grabbing the orb. He's like, it has some type of Raiders, Lost Ark kind of thing going on, and it's amazing that he'll bring up those like references. And like that's exactly what I would say, at that kind of moment. And having a lot of those things, like doing at one point he does the whole the finger across the neck,
slitting the throat.
And it's just like it's cool having that, because we're already thrown into this fantastic world of just aliens, starships, things like that, and here we have sort of, for lack of better words, our everyday character.
Yeah, he is a vessel to carry our culture.
That's what it was. That's exactly the way. Because
sure.
It was so cool because once it kind of kicks off, what I will say, I did like how they got the team together. I didn't
that was
know,
neat.
Yeah, I didn't know how they were going to do it, and going into this, all we know is that they call themselves the Guardians of the Galaxies. Like that's all we know, but we don't necessarily know all the, unless you've read the comics or something like that. You don't necessarily know that they actually are outlaws and not really, too kind people at times. But like the way they meet up is just so. It's just like, oh, they put a bounty on Star-Lord. Okay, well, I guess Rocket Raccoon's our bounty hunter, and he's got a big giant tree guy called Groot. And
yeah, it was a nice, like, kind of organic way to assemble everybody.
It was really cool. Yeah. Like I definitely liked how it all turned out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what was your sort of favorite part of the film? If there's something about that film that really stuck out to you, either shot wise or composition wise or things like that.
I've got it.
Okay.
My favorite thing, hands down, is the attitude with the way that events preceded each other. I think it really dawned on me when big gray dude, what's his name?
Drax.
Yeah.
Drax the Destroyer.
When Drax calls up the big bad because he's drunk and wants to fight him so bad.
So amazing.
And then just the whole fleet comes in and he's like, I want to kill you. Like the fact that this is a film where it really takes into account like what these random spontaneous characters would actually be doing.
What I love to speak of that, what for me the scene that really resonated in terms of that same area, same drunkenness. It was actually when Rocket Raccoon, you just see them fighting, and then you kind of come to the shot, and he's just like they call me vermin, right? Like all these sort of things. Like it was hard to kind of see that because it was really telling of like I didn't want to exist this way. Sure. I'm not supposed to be this way, and it was like the first time I could say like holy shit, that character's human. Mm-hmm. Like because he's at the time in like this wisecracking kind of thing and sort of saying lines and being funny and being relatively destructive.
Yeah.
But that was like the most human I've ever seen a raccoon be in terms of CG. But it was like a little heartbreaking. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was a really effective way to give him depth and all that.
Yeah, no, that's what I loved about this film was kind of how every character had a bit of depth to them, had a bit of things to them. Like we have obviously Quinn sort of losing his parents. We have Rocket Raccoon kind of being this weird abomination of life, and sort of meeting another weird abomination called this giant plant thing in calling Groot. We then have our Drax who lost his family, and then we have Gamora who essentially lost her entire planet. Yeah. And all these guys, there's a great line where Star-Lord says, "We're all losers." Mm-hmm. And they've all lost something. He's implying like that. But they ultimately are saying, no, we actually are losers, but this is the first time in our lives we can have a chance to actually do something about it and sort of make something of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's kind of dissect the movie a bit for, just to kind of break things down.
Okay.
What did you think of all the villains? Because I don't know how I feel about our main villain, Ronan. Because, if it weren't for the fact that we had all this humor and all these like really larger than life, really cool kind of protagonists, our antagonist is kind of weak.
A little bit, yeah.
I
mean, it's not a film where you walk away saying, "Wow, that character Ronan just really contributed so much," aside from his opposing presence.
But is it just because of the fact that in the Marvel universe we're so like we were sort of spoiled and blessed having Loki as our main villain in the Thor series. I can't speak.
Right.
And having that fucking I forgot that actor's name. That
Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, Tom Hiddleston. Yeah, right. Having him be this like Shakespearean, larger than life villain that's just chewing up the scenery and doing a damn good job of it, and like being this like awesome character, whereas most villains aren't. Especially in comic books, aren't always fleshed out as much as they should be. And there are some that are. Do not get me wrong. We have the Joker in the DC world that's like had a whole bunch of backstory, and even Thanos in the Marvel world definitely has a lot of cool kind of nuances to him. But traditionally, we have the kind of twirling mustache sort of, I'm going to destroy the world because power or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you I guess the question goes like, if that was our villain, would this movie have been the same without the way the Guardians were portrayed.
I mean, no. If the Guardians were anything less or anything different than what they are, then this film would not be nearly as strong as it is, because that's such a big element of the DNA and chemistry of this
That's
film.
exactly what it was, because like every time that they were off the scene, off the shot, so to speak, I just didn't. I was like, okay, let's get back to Guardians. Let's get back to these guys. I want to see more of these guys, whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't care what they're doing. Just have them, fucking playing craps and shit. Like the minute, like speaking of the whole getting drunk scene, like when you saw Drax and Rocket and Groot just drinking and like kind of watching essentially the space equivalent of a cockfight,
right?
And just them talking about, like, it was amazing. It just like. I think, what was it? Like he said, like, I will drink this liquor or whatever. That's the smartest thing you ever said all night. It was just such a cool moment of when you saw them kind of getting all buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of roles, and it was a very brief kind of role that this character had, this actor. But I feel we have to talk about friend of other shows that we watch and other things like that. Mr. Michael Rooker.
Michael Rooker.
As what was it?
Blue guy.
Yandin. I think it was.
Wasn't it Yondu?
Yondu, thank you. I knew it was like a Y something. But blue guy, essentially.
Blue guy.
Yondu. Did it feel like he was just playing Michael Rooker?
It was weird. It was so hard for me to for me to see him as anything other than that dude that I met at Dragon Con. But it's weird because I've seen him in The Walking Dead in a bunch of his films and stuff.
Yeah.
But
for those who are more familiar with the Kevin Smith side of things, he was obviously in Mallrats.
Yep.
So he's played various roles over his lifetime, and he's done a damn good job.
He's a well-known character actor.
Yeah.
And this was like the first time. I guess this is the first time I really saw him in anything after I met him, and it was such a weird, like, surreal experience of, oh, I have this weird connection to this guy outside of this film, and I don't know how to break that connection and just detach myself. But, I enjoyed him. He was very Rooker-ish. Rooker definitely has that. He's kind of gruff, but with a little accent of sarcasm and wit, and he's very happy in being a badass,
He has a certain thing to him,
sure,
when he was on screen. Had I not, much like you, I never had the honor to meet Mr. Rooker, but I've seen him on NSFW show Night Attack, and I've heard him on what he sounds like outside of his characters.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not known that, I probably would have thought, oh, it's just a character, whoever. But because I know that, it almost felt like he was playing himself just in that universe. And I think that's what made it that much better because, much like Quinn is sort of our cipher through the world and sort of our way of relating to it because of him being from essentially a Terran or an Earth person or whatever you want to call him, and giving that that referential points for us. Rooker felt like that same kind of thing, except there's nothing that I would never have seen him out of place. He just felt like I guess for lack of better words, an outlaw, but that kind of rough and tumble one. Mm-hmm. And I loved him as a character. Even though he wasn't necessarily a villain, I think what I dug about him was that he was gray, in terms of at times he's bad, times he's good. Ultimately, whatever the paycheck says, that's where I will go towards. But he did have a lot of character and a lot of really kind of cool things like that. I don't even know if there's a name for it, but that arrow-esque weapon, that was fucking tight.
The little whistle arrow.
That was because he kept, what I loved about that whole weapon is that throughout the whole movie,
he keeps taunting it.
Yeah, they've been teasing it. Teasing it. And when is he going to use it? Who is he going to kill with it? What the fuck is going to happen? And when it does...
You're just like, he could have done that this whole time?
Fuck.
All
right. Oh, shit. He just took down 30 or 40 people and a ship, and he didn't even break a sweat.
Yeah.
That was it was the coolest kind of quintessential badass moment for that character.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of go through each one of them. Out of all the Guardians, beyond obviously Star-Lord's very much, everyone loves him. Who was your all-time kind of the one that you felt the most connection to in terms of characters?
I mean, obviously Chris Pratt, amazing.
Yeah,
he would definitely be the one. If you're talking aside from him, I don't know. It's kind of tough for me. I mean, I guess another popular one would be Rocket Raccoon.
Right, of course. Voiced by
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, and I think he has the most resonant character for me. But I mean, they're all at the very least a baseline of great.
I would say for me, and I didn't think going into it would be the case, I relate a lot more to Groot than anybody else.
Yeah?
And maybe it's that Groot's the kind of guy I want to be like. And I know it's weird to say that about a giant biological...
Yeah, you might have to explain that a little bit.
So, obviously with the character, the person that voiced him was...
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel, who actually plays D&D a lot.
Yep.
Enough. Going into it, I kind of was just told, like, all his characters, it says, I am Groot. Like, okay, well, I guess he's just going to be the muscle character. But what I liked about Groot as a character is that he essentially is sort of this living force. And he's not a bad guy. He protects who his friends are, and he protects the people he cares about. Mm-hmm. But you can tell he's not. Like, there's a point in the movie where they're in sort of this outlaw city, and Star-Lord's saying, like, watch your wallets. These kids pickpocket. And you see Groot see this, like, little girl, and he essentially grows a flower, hands it to her. Like, he shows just a moment of kindness in this really horrible area of the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, the galaxy, I should say. Not even the world. This horrible area. And it's always the same thing he's doing. He's showing these sort of moments of kindness. Like, it's dark. He brings the light. Everyone's about to die. He sacrifices himself to save his friends. Like,
fingers up that dude's nose.
Yeah, fingers up that dude's nose. Yes, he will hurt you if you cross his people that he cares about.
Sure.
He will defend his own. He is very much that. But he is very kind if you treat him with respect and sort of understand him. And it was really touching a lot of those times, especially when you saw, Rocket say, like, that last moment when he sort of makes this sort of, wooden bubble sort of thing, saying, what are you doing? You're going to die if you do this. And he sort of just gives the knowledge of, like, I know this. And he sort of says, as opposed to saying, I am Groot, he says, we are Groot, basically saying, you guys are my family. I am not going to let anything destroy my family. And it was really touching. It was like, actually, I'm tearing up just thinking about it, because it's like it's a character I would never have thought would have had depth. I would never have going into it thinking you're going to be able to make a character that all they're saying is I am Groot, or alternately we are Groot, and make me like care about essentially a tree and like this living thing. And I loved it. I loved that character that much, because it's a hard character to pitch,
Sure. He's basically Pikachu.
Yes.
In a great way.
Yes, you're right. Because, I mean, like, all he says is that word, and it like, he will convey, like, so much emotion. And it's such a weird thing to say about that. Like, I am really, it's weird to say I'm impressed with Vin Diesel's performance on that one, because I would never have thought it was going to be anything but, like, this, I am Groot. And that's it. Like, that's all I knew. But coming after everything's there, I'm like, holy shit. I care about this damn plant. This is the most charming character in the entire... I mean, don't get me wrong. Rocket Raccoon's great. Star-Lord's excellent. Gamora's badass. And Drax is really kind of cool as sort of a muscle. But I really like Groot. I really dug him as a character, because he's the one that I was like, in all this sort of world and everything else that this guy's been through. And you could tell, if Groot was a muscle, sort of, everyone sort of perceives him as dumb. Everyone perceives him as sort of this idiot thing. Mm-hmm. And I loved that throughout the entire thing, he would show these just very minor moments of kindness in a horrible, horrible world.
Sure, yeah. I'm not going to dismiss anything you said. That's totally good. It's still not my favorite character, which is fine.
No, and that's
but he's
but
awesome.
The beauty part is that's what makes this movie great, is that you had mentioned the whole thing of that, even though I may love this character not, everyone has a baseline of awesome. Everyone has depth. Everyone has something beyond what they're presented on the screen. And I think that might be, like, everyone essentially, what I liked about the movie, everyone had their moment of sort of becoming the hero. Groot doing the whole bubble thing, Raccoon sort of going back and sort of defending Nova Prime and all everything there, Drax sort of just being, sort of doing all the other things, joining Star-Lord and sort of helping with the whole Infinity Crystal kind of thing, or Infinity Gem, I should say, not Crystal, it's Infinity Gem, Lord Six, and everyone just stepping up. And I think that's what I really dug about these characters, especially these Guardians, if you will, is that they all stepped up when the time came. And at the beginning of the film, you would never have thought these characters were to step up.
Sure.
Like, you would not have... I would not have seen Star-Lord at the beginning of the film. This guy who's stealing a little orb thing to sell for some money, whatever. And doing these sort of things for money. And even Gamora, who's also doing the same thing, trying to give the Infinity that to another place. But the minute that it's presented them to step up and to become larger than they are and become heroes, so to speak, they all do. And it's such a good thing about that story.
Totally.
I think we've pretty much said everything we can say about this movie. Unless there's some final thoughts you got.
Just one more. I'm so happy that we're getting these stars like girl from Hunger Games.
Yes.
And Chris Pratt.
Yep.
Who are just like, they seem like the coolest people outside of films. And they're getting their dues.
I'm just glad we're starting.
I'm so happy.
I'm glad we're getting. What I'm really glad about is that this is the thing I've been saying for a while. When Marvel has full and utter control of a film.
And James Gunn, who would have guessed?
The thing is that's the point, is that Marvel, I mean, not all the time, but they've been showing at least that they're trusting of things. I mean, there's some things that are a little bit wavery that I'm concerned about. I'm sad that Edgar Wright's no longer doing... Edgar Wright was going to do Ant-Man, but he's no longer doing that. I'm kind of sad by that because I'd love to see Edgar Wright in this universe doing what he does best.
And I'm also bummed about Paul Rudd. He got in that movie, and I saw an interview where it felt like he totally got into the movie because Edgar Wright was in there, and now he's just kind of sticking with it because, like, dude needs to get paid.
Yeah, he's got a contract.
And he's like, yeah, I'm sure this movie's going to be great, but, man, it would have been awesome to work with Edgar Wright.
And maybe that... maybe would have been the movie for him to direct. As much as I love James Gunn doing this movie, he did a great job. Maybe Guardians would have been the film for Edgar Wright to direct.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. Like, Guardians is kind of a little bit more in that fun, like, kinetic universe that Edgar Wright operates in.
Right, and again, the soundtrack, like, it just completely lends itself to having an Edgar Wright director do it. But that being said, I am still excited for what Marvel pulls out next. I don't see a falter anymore. I don't see... like we said kind of at the get-go of this whole episode, it's going to take a lot of work for Marvel to fuck things up. It's going to take a lot of work for them to screw it up. At least when it comes to Marvel Studios. Anything that's not done by Marvel Studios is fair game. So far, they seem to have X-Men on track because Days of Future Past was pretty epic, and First Class was really epic too. So they seem to have that on track. And if they keep with that same team and that same kind of feeling, I think we're fine. As for, Spider-Man, I don't know. I haven't seen anything yet. But when it comes to Marvel Studios, they're going to have to really work hard to screw things up. Because even with that stinger being Howard the Duck, and I know a lot of people have the George Lucas movie in their minds as being the horrible thing. And I know I've read that they're not planning on making Howard the Duck movie. I could see them making a Howard the Duck movie and making it work. If you've already presented to me as a moviegoer of the universe that we can have a talking raccoon that is human and a giant tree that has emotion by just saying 3 words, I don't see how you can't make a Howard the Duck film. I don't see how you can't do that. I'm not sure what kind of movie it'll be, and I don't know how you go about doing it. But if this sort of force behind it that has brought forth this movie that, had you told me, years ago, maybe before Avengers, before a lot of, Iron Man, before that, said, hey, they're eventually going to make this movie about a talking raccoon. I'm like, are you fucking serious? The guys that made X-Men 3? Ha! I would never have thought that. Now, fuck it.
Anything's possible.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Sure.
I'm excited, and I'm thrilled, and I'm so glad we got to see this film.
Yeah. I just want to say, I was right. Called it from early on. This movie was going to be dope. And it was. So far, all my predictions have been awesome so far.
All right.
I'm just saying.
All right. Well, we're gonna end this episode here, but I do want to do something really quick because we did see a trailer for something that I think you're really excited for.
Oh yeah.
What is it? Is it Mood Indigo?
Michel Gondry.
Michel Gondry film, the guy that brought Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
What's your prediction on that movie? Whatever that movie's called. We'll put a big picture here in the show notes or something.
That movie will be very Gondry-esque.
Okay.
I think.
The only reason I'm doing this is because you've already you predicted that Guardians was going to be
okay.
Dope.
Sure.
So I want to have a moment now.
All right.
Where we
put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Get it on the record.
Exactly.
I think Gondry is not perfect
in
his films, although I do think Eternal Sunshine is a masterpiece.
Yep.
I think this is going to be really excellent. I think it'll be approximately on par with her. I think
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of
pretty
similarities.
Cool. The trailer looked very visually stunning.
Yeah, and that's what Gondry is exceptionally well at. Even when he did the Green Hornet, which there were some awesome visuals in that film.
Right.
I think it's going to be visually super impressive. It seems like the subject matter is going to be interesting. I think he's operating in the stuff that he's good at. I think it'll be a really good film. It may not be like a huge hit. It's going to be really good, though.
I think it should be fine. But yeah, I just want to make sure I got you on record for that, because like that was the trailer. When I saw the name Eternal Sunshine came up, like I want to know what Brandt is thinking about this movie and when we're going to see this film.
Yeah. Also, Interstellar is going to be fucking awesome.
There you go.
It's going to be so great.
There, we've already said it. We've already dictated it here. Brandt, thank you so much for doing the show with me. Tell people they can find you online, sir.
You can find me on Twitter at Gatowag, Gatowag, or anywhere else. Just look for a name, Brandt Hughes. There's a D in Brandt.
And, of course, you can find me. I'm at Vincent404 on the Twitter. If you want to check out previous episodes here, maybe hear our other commentaries on films and other things like that, or hear our reaction on Her, by the way, speaking of, you mentioned that film. Head to our website, Cinematalkraphy.com. I say CosmicRadio.TV/cinematography.
You don't want to know it says Cinematography.com.
No, you don't want to know what's there. There's some dangerous stuff. But, of course, if you want to talk to us on Twitter, hit us up at Cinematography. Let us know what your thoughts are on Guardians of the Galaxies, anything in that kind of regard, or other movies you'd like to hear us talk about. Hit us up also on our email at
cinematography@gmail.com.
Thank you for covering there, Brandt.
Or our Twitters. Did you say our Twitters?
I said our Twitter at
Cinematography.
Yep, I did.
Get that in double.
Get that in double. Twice. So that's it. So until next time.
Then you're talking, because we're outside. High five.